Welcome to The Quiet Scientist. I'm so glad you're here. Wherever you may be tonight, curled under a blanket, lying on your back with the soft hum of a fan nearby, or simply letting your eyes rest for a while, thank you for making this quiet little corner of science part of your evening. Tonight, I'd like to begin with something small, something so small, in fact, that it often escapes notice entirely. A flicker, a flutter, a gentle, invisible rhythm that lives just behind your gaze. You blink. Maybe you do it now, without thinking. Maybe you just did. And maybe, though you might not know it, your blink has something to say. Not in words, not even in feelings, but in movement, in timing, in frequency. It's strange, isn't it? That something so automatic might carry a signal, that your eyelids might whisper truths you're not ready to speak aloud, or lies you didn't even mean to tell. Tonight's story asks a quiet question. Why do we blink more when we lie? A simple curiosity, tucked inside an everyday gesture, one that science has studied with soft patience and delicate observation. But don't worry, we're not here to judge. This isn't about lie detectors or interrogations. It's about the body, the brain, and the tender choreography they perform when honesty falters. Now, I hope this story helps you relax, maybe even drift into sleep, but just in case it doesn't. Maybe because this question is more interesting than it looks, or because your brain is secretly wide awake. I hope you leave with something you didn't know before. A new way of noticing, a quieter kind of science. Before we blink our way too deep into tonight's mystery, a gentle like or subscribe would mean the world to me. And it helps The Quiet Scientist keep growing quietly. And if you'd like, I'd love to know where you're listening from, and what time it is for you, right now, wherever you are. Oh, and just a small reminder, in case you need it, nothing here is medical advice. Just wonder, just thought, just story. So, take a breath in and a slower one out. Let your jaw loosen, let your shoulders fall, let your thoughts soften. And now, let's begin. The history of blinking is older than us, older than humans, older, even, than creatures who could lie. Before the first whispered fib, before the first moment a child said, "I didn't do it," even though they had, before any of us learned to weigh truth against consequence, there was the blink. Once upon a time, though time didn't yet mean anything to creatures without clocks, eyes began to open, eyes that could see light through shallow water, eyes that weren't just sensors, but guides. They helped early life swim toward warmth, away from threat. They helped shape the very idea of direction. But with eyes came risk. They dried. They scratched. They failed if left too long without protection. And so, over countless generations, nature began to invent something marvelous. The blink, not a full closing, like sleep, just a whisper of absence, just enough to keep things going. Blinking was never meant to carry meaning, at least not at first. It was about function, moisture, clarity, self-maintenance, an eyelid like a windshield wiper, cleaning, refreshing, restoring. But then came consciousness, memory, intention, thought. And with all of that, with the dawn of what we might call mind, came something new, awareness. And suddenly, that little flick of skin wasn't just maintenance anymore. It was expression. It was rhythm. It was a mirror for what stirred behind the eyes themselves. Blinking, you see, lives in the space between things, between sentences, between moments, between ideas. It's not just about keeping your eyes wet, it's about letting your brain breathe. We blink more when we shift attention, when we feel uncertain, when we try to retrieve a memory or push a thought away. Some researchers have even called blinking the brain's punctuation mark, a way of saying, softly, "I'm changing gears now." And in that sense, Blinking can become a window, a way in. It's not about catching someone in a lie. This story doesn't belong in interrogation rooms or courtroom dramas. This is about the gentle language of the body, the way it reflects what we feel without asking permission. When you lie, even a small lie, your brain enters a subtle kind of strain. You must imagine something that isn't real. You must edit what you'd normally say. You must hold back part of yourself. That takes effort. And when the brain works harder, the body follows. Your heartbeat might shift, just a little. Your pupils might change size. And sometimes, often enough for psychologists to notice, your blinking picks up speed, a flurry, a flutter, like a breeze passing through a field of grass, just before a storm. The fascinating part isn't just that we blink more when we lie, it's that we don't mean to. It happens beneath awareness, outside of control, a private signal from a system that's always listening, always responding, always quietly expressing. Even if you train your face to stay still, even if you rehearse your words, the blink remains. Of course, it's not always a lie. That's the beautiful complexity of it. You might blink more when you're nervous, or tired, or deep in thought, or speaking to someone you want to impress. The blink doesn't shout, it doesn't accuse, it simply speaks its own soft language, and sometimes we get to listen. So tonight, as we begin this exploration, remember this. Your body is never still. Even in your quietest moments, it moves, it breathes, it flickers, it blinks, and maybe, just maybe, the next time someone asks you a question, and you blink before answering, you'll notice, you'll smile, you'll think of this quiet little story, and maybe that moment will feel a little more magical, a little more human. Now, close your eyes for just a second. Let them rest. We're only getting started. A few moments pass. The quiet deepens. Somewhere behind your closed eyelids, something ancient lingers, not in memory, not in language, but in the long inheritance of life. You don't need to recall it for it to be real. You are blinking now, just as your ancestors once did, and before them, their ancestors, and long, long before words like ancestor even existed, eyes were learning to close. The story of blinking begins in water, in those primordial seas, warm, shallow, bursting with early life. Eyes began as patches of light-sensitive cells, no lashes, no lids, just spots that could tell the difference between dark and bright. That was enough, at first, enough to follow the sun, enough to sense the passing shadow of a predator overhead, enough to move toward the light and away from the unknown. But evolution, like a painter never quite finished with her canvas, kept going. As some of these light-seeking creatures ventured closer to shore, they met the challenge of air. Air, that beautiful, invisible thing, was not kind to bare eyes. It dried, it scratched, it let dust swirl and sand sting. And so, the eye began to evolve armor, transparent lids, thin membranes, folds of skin that could stretch and retract, slowly, protectively. They blinked, not out of deception, not out of thought, simply as a biological necessity, a curtain to shield, to clean, to soothe. These early blinks weren't messages, they were maintenance. And yet, that movement, so small, so vital, would become something more. As animals developed brains, their sensory worlds grew more complex. Eyes weren't just light readers anymore. They became portals of awareness. The blink, once just a defense, grew tethered to cognition. You can almost imagine it, a moment when a creature, mid-blink, began to associate that flicker with a pause in attention. Maybe a heartbeat skipped. Maybe a decision hesitated. The eyes closed not just to protect, but to process. And that shift, that gentle pivot from reflex to rhythm, was the beginning of something human. In you, this legacy lives on. Each time you blink, your brain briefly quiets its visual input. It's like a hush falls over the mind, allowing other systems to step forward. Your internal narrator might pick up a thought, a memory might rise. The act itself is nearly instant, just a third of a second. But what happens in that breath of time? That's where the mystery begins. It's why blinking is such a perfect companion to thinking, and why it becomes especially fascinating when the truth starts to bend. But before we reach that crossroads, before we start unraveling the patterns that link lies to fluttering eyelids, we stay here in the origin, in the way blinking began as an act of preservation, before meaning, before metaphor, before anyone ever said, "Look me in the eye." It's worth lingering here a little longer. Think about reptiles, crocodiles, turtles. Their eyes have nictitating membranes, those ghostly inner eyelids that slide sideways across the surface like a veil. These are still with us, in a way, remnants, echoes in our DNA. Birds have them too, owls, falcons. They use these blinks not only to keep vision sharp, but to prepare, just before flight, just before strike, just before something changes. So, blinking is not stillness, it's readiness, a signal that something is shifting, inside or out. You might not feel it, but you blink around 15 to 20 times every minute, even more when you're talking, less when you're reading. Each blink is a ripple in the river of awareness, a small moment of reset, over and over again. And unlike the birds or reptiles, you don't usually control it. It just happens, like breathing, like swallowing. Your eyelids move in concert with your thoughts, reflecting things you don't quite notice: fatigue, discomfort, hesitation, or ease, confidence, calm. If you were to observe someone in deep concentration, someone sketching, or solving a puzzle, or threading a needle, you'd notice something. Their blinking slows. The eyes become steadier, almost frozen, trying not to miss a beat. The body says, "Let's stay with this," and the blink obeys. But shift the context, add uncertainty, distraction, anxiety, and blinking comes alive again. The curtain draws more frequently, not because the eye is dry, but because the brain is adjusting. This pattern lays the groundwork for everything we'll explore next. It's the bridge between the primitive blink and the meaningful one, between biology and behavior. Because while blinking may have begun as a protective reflex, it has, over time, become an intimate indicator of your inner world. You might never notice it in yourself, not unless you're being filmed, or watching in a mirror, or caught in a moment where you realize your eyes are dancing more than usual. But others do. Subconsciously, naturally, the way humans read each other is complex and layered, and the blink is part of that silent vocabulary. In social settings, we track blinking more than we realize. We sense its rhythms, its hesitations. When someone blinks rapidly, we might feel they're uneasy. When they hardly blink at all, we might wonder what they're hiding, or guarding, or holding back. And that, perhaps, is the most poetic part of it all. Your eyelids, so soft, so thin, so unremarkable, have become messengers of the mind. When a thought is uncomfortable, or a truth is too heavy, or a story isn't entirely true, the blink rises to meet it, not to betray, not to reveal, but to respond, to protect, to regulate, like it always has. So, as you lie here, letting the quiet of the evening settle over you, consider the legacy behind each small blink, from the ancient oceans to the quiet tension of conversation, from instinct to expression, from silence to signal. And when we meet again in the next moment, the next breath, the next gentle step in this story. We'll begin to explore how these blinks, once purely primal, became threads in the web of human communication. Close your eyes again now. Feel the flicker. Let it pass. Let it guide us forward. You might still feel the trace of that last blink, not a memory, but a soft impression, like the gentle closing of a curtain before the lights dim. You don't have to command it. It happens, quietly, predictably, invisibly, and yet, inside that blink, inside that brief moment of darkness, something remarkable is unfolding. Your eyes are never idle. Even as they close for that split second, even as your focus rests elsewhere, they continue their quiet service, protecting, resetting, organizing light. Every blink is a backstage crew changing the set while the play continues uninterrupted. But there's more happening than moisture and muscle. Each time you blink, the brain initiates a kind of brief shutdown, a flicker of neural silence that keeps you from noticing the world going dark. If you didn't have this, blinking would feel like the lights being switched off 20 times a minute. Instead, the world flows on, seamless, continuous. Your brain edits out the gaps. It stitches the spaces into a steady reel. You don't see the blink. You experience the illusion of an unbroken sight. This hidden choreography between eyelid and cortex is called blink suppression. And it's not just a technicality, it's a gift. One of the many ways your brain spares you from distraction. It's the same magic that lets you ignore your nose sitting in your field of vision, or the feeling of your socks, or the faint hum of the refrigerator. All of it, quietly filtered, smoothed out, silenced, so that you can think, so that you can speak, so that you can pay attention. But what happens when attention shifts, when focus grows shaky, when thoughts become tangled? That's when the blink changes too. You've probably noticed that when you're engaged in a task, reading a book, listening intently, solving a puzzle, your blinking slows. The eyes become still, anchored, focused. The world outside narrows into something specific, and the brain holds tight. But the moment you pause, the moment your mind wanders even slightly, your blinking picks up again. It's as if your body knows you need a break, knows you're adjusting, knows something inside is shifting. This is where blinking starts to take on something deeper than function. This is where it becomes a reflection of state, a subtle readout of what's going on beneath the surface. Even though the average person blinks around 15 to 20 times per minute, that number can fluctuate dramatically depending on mood, environment, and intention. A conversation with someone you trust might bring about a slow, steady rhythm, but an uncomfortable moment, a question you didn't expect, you may find your eyes fluttering, almost like they're trying to hide. You don't choose it, it chooses you. And it's not just psychological. Inside your brain, a region called the frontal cortex helps manage voluntary blinking, like when you intentionally close your eyes. But spontaneous blinking, that's orchestrated by the basal ganglia, a deep, ancient part of the brain associated with habit, emotion, and movement. This system doesn't ask for permission. It just acts. It follows your emotional current, like a leaf on a stream. That's why blinking reveals things even you may not know you're feeling, because it's shaped by the subconscious, by the body's quiet radar, always scanning, always adjusting. In fact, some researchers have proposed that blinking may serve as a kind of internal marker, a signal to your own brain that something is changing, a moment of shift, of reset. You blink more when switching topics. You blink more when something feels emotionally charged. You blink more in moments of self-reflection, like punctuation. Yes, but also like a turning of the page. A new scene begins. And, as strange as it sounds, Blinking may also be part of how you regulate yourself. When stress builds up, even slightly, blinking increases. It's a way for the body to soften the load, to offer a pause when the mind refuses to take one. You blink, and something inside exhales. This connection becomes especially visible in performance settings, public speaking, interviews, meetings. When people step into moments that feel high stakes, their blinking can skyrocket. It's not just dryness or nerves. It's the body's way of managing presence, of saying, "Hold on, let me catch up." This is what makes blinking such a quiet wonder. It exists on the threshold between the seen and unseen, between biology and emotion, between stimulus and story, and still. Despite how often it happens, how essential it is, we rarely talk about it. Blinking lives in the background, in silence, unnamed. It doesn't have the drama of a racing heartbeat or the clarity of a tear. It doesn't make noise. It doesn't leave a mark. But that's its power. It's the unnoticed gesture that reveals so much, especially when we lie. Because in the act of deception, all of these hidden systems become just a little louder. The eyes, the breath, the voice, they each carry more weight. They wobble. They change rhythm. They try to hold still and often fail. Blinking becomes one of the first signs. Not because liars want to blink more, but because lying, no matter how harmless, puts the brain into a minor state of cognitive dissonance, a mismatch between what is said and what is felt. And the body always notices a mismatch. The blink says, something doesn't line up, but we're not there just yet, tonight. We're still unfolding the layers, gently, piece by piece. And for now, it's enough to simply know this. Your eyes are storytellers. Even when closed, your blinks are more than breaks. They are markers, mirrors, soft responses to a world that moves quickly. And within that soft motion, the fall and rise of the eyelid, lives a truth more honest than any word could carry. So, take a moment now to notice the stillness behind your eyes, the light pressure of your lids, the hush between sights. You are blinking, and your body is listening. Somewhere just behind your forehead, your brain is busy doing something ancient and invisible, orchestrating rhythm, not music exactly, not melody or beat, but a different kind of rhythm. The rhythm of attention, of shifting thoughts, of mental steps taken just half a pace behind awareness. And one of the clearest signs of this rhythm is the blink, in the quiet of your room, as your body sinks further into stillness. You might begin to notice it, that faint, unspoken tempo. Blink, pause, thought, blink again. Sometimes slower, sometimes fast, but always there, like a silent metronome guiding the internal conversation. Earlier, we talked about blink suppression, how your brain gently filters out the darkness when your eyes close. Now, we go a step deeper. Because blinking, as it turns out, isn't just a physical refresh, it's also a neural reset. When you blink, your brain doesn't just ignore the visual interruption, it uses it. It treats each blink like a comma in a sentence. A moment to pause, to organize, to reorient attention. During a blink, activity in the default mode network, the same part of the brain linked to daydreaming, self-reflection, and internal thought, quietly increases. That means your blink might be the doorway to a thought you weren't expecting, a memory, a fragment of music, a half-formed sentence you didn't realize you were composing. And that's part of what makes blinking so intimately tied to deception. Because when you tell the truth, there's less work to do. The truth doesn't need rehearsal. It doesn't require choreography. It flows gently, from memory to mouth. But a lie, even a tiny one, that takes effort. The brain has to pause, to adjust, to momentarily hold two realities, the truth and the fiction, and decide which one to present. And in that moment of adjustment, blink. It's not theatrical, it's not suspicious, it's just real, human, honest, even in its dishonesty. You might have noticed this yourself, not in others, but in you. A time you fibbed about being late, or changed a detail in a story to make it funnier, or kept quiet about something just to avoid an awkward pause. You blinked, maybe once, maybe 3 times, maybe in quick succession. You didn't plan it. It happened on its own. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Studies using eye tracking technology have shown that blink rates change significantly when people are asked to lie under observation, but not always in the same direction. Some people blink more, others less. What matters is change, a disruption in their normal rhythm, their baseline. And what causes that change? Cognitive load. Your brain is a master multitasker, but it has limits. Lying introduces new tasks. You have to suppress the truth, construct an alternative, maintain eye contact, monitor your tone, anticipate response. And all of this happens in real time. That extra load ripples outward, into the hands, the breath, the voice, and yes, into the eyes. The blink becomes a pause button. Your brain instinctively presses, not to stop, but to slow, to buy time, to breathe. Imagine someone answering a question with perfect calm. Their words come easily. Their body is still. And then, as they begin to shift the story just slightly, you notice it, a blink, maybe 2, rapid, out of sync with their previous pattern. To the untrained eye, it's nothing. But to a careful observer, to someone who knows what to watch for, it speaks volumes. But let's step back for a moment. None of this is about catching anyone in a lie. This isn't about turning science into suspicion, because blinking isn't a confession. It's not proof. It's a signal, one piece of a much larger picture. Sometimes we blink more simply because we're tired, or overstimulated, or distracted. Sometimes our blinking shifts because we're excited, or unsure, or lost in thought. And in that way, blinking is less about the facts we speak and more about the state we're in when we speak them. The beauty of this signal, this tiny, involuntary flicker, is that it reminds us how much our bodies are involved in our communication. Not just the vocal cords or the hands, but the eyes, the breath, the space between words. It reminds us that honesty and deception aren't just moral decisions. They're cognitive events, and our bodies, built to handle truth with graceful ease, sometimes stutter when asked to carry something less stable. That's not failure, that's just being human. So, the next time you find yourself mid-conversation, watching someone speak, or listening to your own voice fill the air, notice the blinks, yours, theirs, not to analyze, not to decode, but simply to witness, to appreciate the quiet interplay between mind and motion. A blink is a breath. A blink is a beat. A blink is a signal that something, anything, is happening within. As you lie here now, letting the rhythm of your own body lull you deeper into stillness. Let that awareness stay with you, not sharp, not focused, just soft, just present, somewhere, in the spaces between these words, you're blinking. Maybe more than before, maybe less, maybe not at all. And whether that's because of comfort, or curiosity, or something you're not yet sure how to name, it's okay. There's nothing you need to fix, nothing to hide, only the slow unfolding of attention and the gentle dance of eyelids in the dark. You are a symphony of rhythms. Let the next one come as it wishes. Your eyes are still, you're breathing slow, but somewhere underneath that stillness, your body is listening, not just to sound or silence, but to feeling, the quiet, shifting currents of emotion that move beneath every thought. And blinking, listens to, it may seem mechanical, the way your eyelids rise and fall. But the truth is, they don't just move with dryness or light. They move with feeling, joy, shame, anticipation, doubt. Emotion changes the rhythm of your blink, not in grand, sweeping ways, but subtly, like the faint ripple across a pond before a breeze you can't yet feel. You blink differently when you feel safe. There's a softness to it, a steadiness. People who are calm and comfortable tend to blink in a regular rhythm, slow, even, unobtrusive. The kind of blinking that goes unnoticed. It blends into the background of being. No sharp flutters, no sudden stops. Just the gentle metronome of a mind at ease. But when emotion swells, when something unexpected stirs inside, the blink responds. Sometimes it speeds up, sometimes it disappears altogether, and sometimes it bursts forward, erratic and fast, as if your eyes are trying to speak what your mouth cannot. Think about moments of nervousness, standing before a room of strangers, meeting someone for the first time, trying to explain something personal. Your breath may quicken, your hands may fidget, but almost without fail, your blinking changes. It becomes more frequent, more expressive. Your eyelids tell the truth even when your words try not to. And in the case of lying, even small, socially accepted lies, emotion is nearly always involved. Because even the smallest fib carries weight, a twinge, a tick, a twist in the smooth surface of feeling. Maybe it's guilt, or fear of being caught, or worry about how the lie will be received, or even the simple excitement of pulling it off. Whatever the emotion, your body registers it. The blink is the messenger. This is especially true in emotionally charged situations, arguments, confessions, high-stakes questions. The more emotion enters the room, the more your blink reflects it. And here's something beautiful. Even positive emotion can shift the blink. Excitement, anticipation, love. When you're overwhelmed with joy, you're swept up in awe, your blink rate may spike, not out of discomfort, but out of sensory overflow. Your mind moves faster, and the eyes, trying to keep up, begin to flutter. The blink becomes part of your aliveness. In this way, blinking becomes not just a signal of stress or deception, but of emotional movement. It tells a story of what it feels like to be fully human, to care, to hesitate, to wonder, to withhold, to reveal. Psychologists have long studied this link between blinking and emotion. In interviews, participants who were asked emotionally loaded questions, even when they answered honestly, still showed noticeable changes in blink rate. Why? Because the emotional processing, not just the truth or falsehood, affected the body's rhythm. In some cases, people blink more after answering rather than during, a kind of emotional exhale, a moment of recovery after the weight of speaking. The body, having held tension, lets go, and the blink rides that release. It's almost like the blink is a sigh through the eyes. You've probably done this too, after saying something difficult, something real. The words leave your lips, and then blink, blink, blink. Not just to see better, but to feel better, to reset, to soften. This rhythm becomes even more telling when you consider how often people try not to show emotion. We're trained, sometimes by culture, sometimes by habit, to keep our faces still, to remain composed, but the blink doesn't always follow the rules. It lives in the margins, in the in-between, where control fades and feeling flows. That's why, when we lie, the blink may betray us, not because the lie is always malicious, but because it creates a tension, a dissonance between what we say and what we feel. That dissonance needs somewhere to go, and sometimes It finds its way to the eyelids. There's something quietly poetic about that even when we try to hide, our bodies continue to tell the story. But this isn't about being caught. It's not about guilt or shame. It's about empathy, understanding, the soft recognition that every person you meet, even the ones who blink a little too quickly, or not at all, is carrying something inside, some inner shift, some tiny emotional weather front that shapes the way their body moves through the world. To notice someone's blink is to notice their humanity, and that includes your own, because you blink differently when you feel exposed, when you feel heard, when you're about to cry, or when you're holding back tears. The eyes don't lie, not because they're trying to tell the truth, but because they don't know how to do anything else. So, as you lie here, surrounded by stillness, allow yourself to reflect on that. The quiet honesty of your eyes, the way they speak in silence, the way they flutter with feeling, not for attention, not for explanation, just as part of the way your body understands the world. You are not just seeing, you are being seen by your own nervous system, by your subconscious, by the part of you that always listens, even when your mind is still. Let that be enough. Let your next blink be gentle. Let it carry no pressure. Let it happen naturally, as it always has, from emotion, from memory, from somewhere deeper than language. And as you drift further inward, deeper into the soft places of thought, we'll follow that blink a little further, into the strange and fascinating world of how lies change our blinking patterns. Not just emotionally, but biologically. But not just yet. For now, feel the soft weight of your eyelids, the space between blinks. You are here, and that's enough. And now, as your thoughts drift through the rhythm of breath and blink, we arrive at a place where everything begins to converge: feeling, attention, instinct, and intention. The moment when truth gives way to something else. A story adjusted, a fact reshaped, a moment slightly bent. The moment of the lie. It doesn't have to be dramatic. Most lies aren't. They're small, convenient, quietly woven into conversation like invisible threads. I'm fine. I forgot. No, it doesn't bother me. These aren't grand manipulations. They're tiny pivots, tiny rewrites of reality. But even in their smallness, they leave footprints in the body. And one of the first places those footprints show up is in your blinking. Scientists have long observed that lying, even harmless, everyday lying, tends to correlate with changes in blink rate, and not just more blinking. Sometimes it's less, sometimes it's delayed, sometimes it comes in rapid bursts, like a stuttering heartbeat. What matters most is not the amount, but the disruption, the irregularity, the change. Think of your blink rhythm as a musical score. When you speak naturally, when you feel comfortable and honest, that rhythm flows in steady beats. But introduce a lie, even a small one, and suddenly the music skips. It hesitates. It speeds up. It loses tempo. You might not feel it happen, but your nervous system does. Because lying is cognitively demanding. It requires multiple layers of effort all at once. You have to inhibit the truth, construct an alternative, recall details that didn't happen, match tone and facial expression to what you're saying, watch the other person's reaction. And all of this is happening in real time. Your brain lights up like a switchboard. Circuits that usually operate quietly, focused on simple conversation, are suddenly flooded, and the stress of this increase, even if small, leaks out in subtle, physical ways. A shift in breathing, a tightening of the jaw, and yes, a change in blinking. You blink more when your brain is overloaded. And deception, even practiced, even rehearsed, creates just enough overload to nudge your blink pattern off balance. This is especially evident in experiments where subjects are asked to lie on cue. In controlled environments, researchers have tracked eye movements, muscle tension, and blink timing. What they found is that people tend to blink less while telling a lie, and more in the moments just after. It's as if the body holds its breath during the lie, and then exhales with a flutter of eyelids. Some call this the rebound blink effect, a kind of neural sigh. You suppress blinking to focus, to maintain control, and once the lie is out, the brain relaxes slightly, allowing the blink to return in a small burst. It doesn't happen every time, and it doesn't happen to everyone, but the pattern is there, not as proof, not as a verdict, but as a gentle ripple in the current of communication. It's one of the reasons interrogators and psychologists often watch the eyes, not to accuse, not to catch, but to understand the unspoken rhythms beneath the words, because a lie, at its core, is a disruption, and disruption often leaves signs. Of course, context matters. Some people blink more when they lie, others blink less, and some don't change at all. That's why the blink alone is never enough. It's just one thread in a tapestry of behavior. To truly understand what a blink means, you have to know the person, their normal patterns, their baseline. If someone naturally blinks a lot when they speak, then more blinking might not mean anything. But if their blink rate suddenly drops, or suddenly rises, in a moment where emotion or uncertainty appears, then you begin to see the language of the body unfolding. But here's the soft truth. The blink isn't trying to betray you. It isn't working against you. It's trying to protect you, because your body doesn't lie easily. It isn't built for dishonesty, it's built for survival. Yes, for adaptation, for communication, but truth, especially emotional truth, is easier on the system. It flows more freely. It requires fewer edits, fewer rehearsals, less suppression. When you tell the truth, your body moves differently. Your eyes blink in time with your words, your gestures align, your pauses feel natural, your rhythm stays intact. But the moment you edit, even slightly, your system adjusts. It has to. And the blink becomes part of that adjustment. And in a strange way, that's comforting. It means your body is always listening to your mind, always responding, always reflecting what you feel, whether or not you say it aloud. This is why lie detection is never really about a single signal. It's about change, about deviation from the norm, and the blink, quiet, ordinary, unnoticed, is one of the first places that change appears. So now, as you lie here, listening, perhaps even blinking a little more as you reflect, think of that, not as something to be wary of, but as something beautiful. You are layered. You are expressive in ways you don't always realize. And even in stillness, your body is telling the truth. Every blink is a conversation, a message to yourself, a quiet signal from within. Whether you're holding back or letting go, whether you're fabricating something or finally speaking something real, your eyes know the difference, and perhaps they don't mind if the world does too. So let your next blink come without effort. Let it arrive like a feather drifting downward. Let it pass, and let the moment soften. In our next step, we'll explore the science behind these patterns, the experiments, the observations, the quiet data gathered by watching the eyes. But for now, rest in the rhythm, blink, and the body continues its gentle dance. Blink, pause, breathe. The dance continues. Somewhere in the quiet hum of scientific curiosity, researchers once noticed something strange, something hiding in plain sight. People, when asked to lie, blinked differently, and not just occasionally, not just once in a while, but consistently enough that it caught the attention of psychologists, neuroscientists, and behavioral experts alike. It was subtle, quiet, but unmistakable. In dim labs and softly lit observation rooms, where every gesture was tracked and every breath recorded, participants were asked to tell stories, some true, some not. Cameras watched, infrared sensors mapped eye motion, software tracked timing down to the millisecond. And among the patterns that emerged, blinking stood out like a whispered confession. Some participants blinked less during the lie, holding their gaze, perhaps trying to appear honest, perhaps focusing so intently on the fabrication that they forgot to blink at all. Others blinked more afterward, their eyes fluttering like leaves after a breeze. Some blinked more in the middle of the lie, when the pressure peaked and the mental gymnastics required an extra breath. But always, there was a shift. Researchers called this a change from baseline. Not because there was one universal blinking pattern for liars, there isn't, but because every person has their own normal rhythm. When that rhythm changes under pressure, it can mean something. Not always dishonesty, sometimes stress, sometimes conflict, sometimes uncertainty. But the shift itself, that's what science listens for. One of the most well-known studies on blink rates and deception was conducted by Vrij and colleagues, who explored the relationship between cognitive load and nonverbal behavior. Their findings: when people lied, their blinking slowed significantly, not just during the lie, but sometimes even before and after, as if their entire system was holding still, bracing, preparing, and then, like a spring released, the blinking returned in a rush. It's called the cognitive load hypothesis, and it rests on a simple truth: lying takes effort. When the brain works harder, it reallocates resources, vision, coordination, muscle control, all become secondary to constructing and maintaining the story. The result? A blink pause, or a blink spike, or both. But it wasn't just blink rate that changed. Blink timing did too. In some cases, blinks clustered around particular words, names, dates, details that required memory. In others, blinks appeared right after a fabricated statement, like a reflex. Almost like the brain, having released something untrue, immediately responded with a silent signal, a just made. And it wasn't just in artificial lab settings. Police interrogators, courtroom analysts, and even poker players have all noticed this rhythm. Not to trap others, not to manipulate, but to understand, to listen more deeply, to pay attention to what is said and what is expressed beyond language. Because blinking is never random. It may feel automatic, unconscious, and in many ways, it is. But it is also responsive, shaped by context, influenced by emotion, tied to thought. In a way, blinking behaves more like speech than we realize. It has tempo, it has rhythm, it has stress patterns, and just like tone of voice or word choice, it adapts when the speaker is under pressure, especially the pressure of concealment. That's what makes it so powerful and so gentle. Because blinking, unlike body posture or facial expression, is harder to fake, harder to control. It doesn't draw attention to itself. It doesn't exaggerate. It just flickers, quietly, repeatedly, a mirror to what's happening beneath the surface. And unlike other body signals, it's rarely rehearsed. You might plan your words. You might rehearse a gesture. But your blink will always be a step ahead of you, responding in real time, shaping itself to the rhythm of your thoughts before you even realize they've changed. Of course, blinking isn't a lie detector. There's no magic number, no foolproof sign. Science doesn't claim it as such, but it does remind us, gently, that the body is always talking, even when we think we're silent, even when our voice is calm, even when our hands are still, even when we think we're hiding perfectly. The blink may say otherwise. But again, that's not betrayal. That's not weakness, that's connection. Because what the science really reveals is that our minds and bodies are never separate. The nervous system, the facial muscles, the tiny, almost invisible flutter of skin over your eyes, they are all part of your story, of every story, of the way we relate, the way we care, the way we conceal, the way we reveal. And so researchers continue to study it, not with suspicion, but with wonder. They study how blinking links to memory recall, to attention switching, to emotional arousal, to decision making. They explore how blink suppression correlates with focus, and how blink bursts may follow moments of conflict or complexity. They even study blinking in different cultures, different ages, different neurological profiles, looking not for guilt or innocence, but for understanding, for insight into how we communicate without speaking. Because sometimes, your eyes say things your voice never will. And maybe that's not something to fear. Maybe it's something to cherish. To know that you are always expressing, always responding. That even your most automatic behaviors are layered with meaning. That even when your mouth says one thing, your blink might say another. And not because it wants to get you in trouble, but because it's part of who you are, the whole you, the honest, imperfect, beautifully complex you. As you lie here, breathing softly, letting this story settle around you, feel the presence of your own rhythm, the eyes resting, the lashes still, or maybe moving, slowly, gently, naturally. You don't need to analyze, you don't need to understand it all. Just know that there's a science behind your silence, a rhythm behind your stillness, a language that lives in the blink, and we're only just beginning to listen. You're still, maybe your eyes are closed, maybe they flutter open now and then, but whether you notice them or not, they're there, quietly reflecting you. And that's the thing about eyes. They never shout. They don't point fingers or demand to be heard. They simply reveal, softly, steadily, unintentionally. We often say, the eyes are the windows to the soul, a phrase so familiar it almost feels cliché, but when you pause to really feel it, when you settle into the quiet truth of it, you begin to understand that it isn't poetry, it's physiology. Your eyes are deeply wired into your emotional core, connected not just to sight, but to emotion, to stress, to memory, and to instinct. They don't merely see the world, they respond to it. And in doing so, they reveal how you truly feel, whether you intend them to or not. That's what makes blinking such a gentle confessor. It's not betraying you. It's not revealing secrets out of disloyalty. It's simply part of a vast and intricate system, one that tries, always, to keep you safe, honest, balanced. Think of what happens when someone asks you a difficult question, one that makes your stomach flutter just a little. You might smile, you might shift in your seat, but most of all, your eyes respond. They flicker, they move, they blink, not in a way that anyone would call obvious, but in a way that anyone would call human, even in complete silence. Eyes carry on a conversation. Eye contact itself is layered with meaning. To look at someone while speaking suggests confidence, or at least a willingness to connect. But to hold that gaze while lying, that takes effort. It requires the speaker to manage not just their words, but their expression, to override the instinct to avert or blink. And yet, even then, the body whispers. Perhaps the blink slows, or pauses unnaturally. Perhaps it rushes in, too fast, too frequent. Perhaps the muscles around the eye twitch ever so slightly. These are not gestures meant for others. They are not performances. They are signals, internal check-ins. The body's quiet way of saying, something feels different now. And sometimes, the blink isn't the only thing that gives it away. Pupil dilation, eye movement, micro expressions, small, involuntary behaviors that happen too fast to fake, too subtle to stage. Researchers have found that when we lie, our pupils may dilate, even in a well-lit room, as the brain ramps up activity. The eyes may shift sideways, trying to escape focus, or they may freeze, locking gaze in an effort to appear steady. But again, the blink. The blink is always there, weaving through these moments like a subtle thread. In a strange way, the eyes often tell a more complete story than the mouth, not because they contradict our words, but because they fill in the space around them, the hesitation before we speak, the reaction after we finish, the microseconds where the truth trembles behind the performance. And while this may seem uncomfortable, the idea that we're always revealing, always exposed, it's also deeply comforting, because it means we are honest by design. Our bodies are built to tell the truth, even when we try not to, even when our words shape a different version of reality. Our systems remain grounded in what we feel. The eyes, perhaps more than anything else, hold that ground. They are not perfect. They are not infallible, but they are authentic. This is why, across cultures, across centuries, eye contact has held such importance. In courtship, in negotiation, in confrontation, in love, there is something deeply human about being seen, and about seeing others. And that moment, that soft, silent space between two gazes, holds more information than any speech. It's why people who lie often avoid prolonged eye contact, or try too hard to maintain it. Because they know, even without knowing how they know, that their eyes might say too much, that their blink might falter, that something invisible might give them away. But again, this isn't about judgment. It's about understanding, about noticing the quiet mechanics of truth, not to accuse, not to manipulate, but to appreciate, to marvel at how finely tuned you are, how your nervous system, without effort or instruction, adapts to the smallest shifts in experience, how your eyes, without planning, become storytellers, even when you don't want them to, even when you're trying to hold something in. They speak softly, involuntarily, honestly, and maybe that's not weakness. Maybe it's wisdom. Maybe it's the body's way of reminding you that being fully seen, truly seen, begins with letting go of performance, with letting the blink happen, however it wishes to. In fact, in many moments of truth, real, raw, unfiltered truth, people don't blink at all. They stare, wide-eyed, as if afraid that closing their eyes might lose something. Or they blink slowly, gently, like they're trying to hold the feeling in place, preserve it. So much of emotion happens in the eyes. The surprise, the fear, the grief, the awe. Even tears begin there, swelling gently, without rush, before they spill over. And that first sign, often a change in blink, a pause, a trembling, the eye holds just a moment longer, then gives in. That's how the body speaks, not in grand gestures, not in declarations, but in breath, in flutter, in flicker. So, tonight, if you find yourself thinking back on conversations, on moments where you blinked a little too fast, or stared a little too long, let go of judgment, let go of analysis, simply notice. Appreciate the way your eyes respond to the world, to thought, to feeling, to truth. They are always responding, always in motion, even now, even in this moment of rest. And as we move forward into the rich territory of cultural stories and ancient metaphors about eyes and truth, let your own eyes close gently. Let the last blink fall softly. Let the rhythm carry you deeper. Because while the eyes may not keep secrets, they do know how to soothe, and sometimes that's more important. Your eyes may be closed now, soft behind the lids, but if they weren't, if they were open and still, They would be telling a story, even in silence, maybe especially in silence. Because long before blinking was measured in labs, long before scientists traced muscle movement or cognitive load, the eyes were already full of meaning. They've always meant something, across cultures, across centuries. Eyes have been both symbols and storytellers. They've been feared, revered, misunderstood, and exalted, not just for what they see, but for what they seem to know. In ancient Egypt, the eye of Horus was not simply decoration. It was protection, healing, power, a watchful guardian, painted onto tomb walls and boat hulls, meant to guide and preserve. The eye there was more than an organ. It was a presence. And in Greek mythology, there were the Grey, three sisters who shared a single eye among them, passing it from hand to hand to see. Their eye held wisdom, foresight, mystery. It was not a tool, but a kind of oracle. The act of seeing and the power of withholding that sight shaped their world. So, it's no surprise that even blinking, the smallest movement of the eyes, has been folded into folklore. In some traditions, a rapid blink was thought to be a sign that someone was lying. Not because anyone had measured it, but because people noticed. They saw the shift, the hesitation, the flutter. In others, a slow blink, almost a closing of the eyes, was seen as a gesture of trust, of vulnerability, a way of saying, "I'm not watching for danger, I feel safe with you." And in certain Eastern philosophies, prolonged eye contact without blinking could be seen as confrontational, even aggressive. The blink, in these spaces, became a gesture of softness, of deference, a way of showing respect without ever speaking a word. The eyes were always speaking. And in the languages of metaphor and myth, they became mirrors, reflections of the soul, doors to truth. Think of the phrases we still use today. He couldn't meet my eyes. She had shifty eyes. I could see it in his eyes. These aren't just poetic leftovers from older times. They're living truths, instinctive truths, carried from generation to generation through observation and experience. Because when you look someone in the eyes, really look, you notice the things they aren't saying. You see the story beneath the story. You sense the alignment, or the fracture. And even if you don't know why, your body responds. Your mirror neurons activate. Your own blinking might change. It's a kind of dance. Eyes responding to eyes. Emotion responding to emotion. This is especially true in children, long before they can speak. Babies learn to read eyes. They track gaze. They respond to blinking. They notice when someone averts their eyes, and they seek out the faces that meet theirs with steady, gentle focus. The blink, for a baby, is not just a mechanical motion. It's part of the language of safety, of presence. We carry this with us as we grow. Even in adulthood, we notice when someone blinks too much or too little. We may not call it out. We may not even consciously register it, but we feel it. That subtle difference, that flicker that suggests unease or hesitation or thought. It's why in film and theater, directors pay close attention to how characters blink. A well-timed blink can suggest grief, tension, fear, longing. A lack of blinking can create suspense, discomfort, or intensity. The eyes become more than props. They become windows into the scene's emotional undercurrent. And in real life, the same is true. You've likely had moments where someone's eyes told you something you didn't want to hear, a truth spoken in silence. Or maybe you felt the pull of someone's gaze, not because they stared, but because they blinked slowly, gently, with feeling behind it. We don't just see with the eyes, we feel through them, we connect through them. This emotional truth is so deep, so innate, that we build entire relationships on it. Trust, in many ways, begins with the eyes. begins with how someone looks at you and how they blink while doing so. The steadiness of it, the softness, the rhythm. Even when lying, people often avoid blinking too much. They know, on some deep level, that erratic blinking feels unnatural, that it reads strangely, that it breaks the rhythm of connection. So, they try to blink normally, to hold their gaze. But the effort shows, because authenticity has a tempo, and the blink follows it like a shadow. You can't fake rhythm, not for long, not without slipping. And so, the stories told by the eyes, and the cultures that shape those stories, all come back to this idea, that truth has a rhythm. And when that rhythm falters, even for a moment, we feel it. You felt it before, in a room, in a conversation, in the pause between words. You might not have known it came from a blink, but now, perhaps, you do. So, as you lie here, drifting through these thoughts, know that your eyes are part of something timeless, a history of meaning, a history of myth, a language written not in letters, but in motion. The next time you look into someone's eyes, or catch your reflection unexpectedly, you might notice it, that flutter, that softness, that silent story. It doesn't ask for anything. It simply is. And as we move forward, we'll follow that rhythm into new territory. The subtle ways our eyes give us space, time, a moment to think, a pause to prepare, a blink that buys us just enough time to decide what we really want to say. But for now, let your own eyes rest. Let them drift. Let the weight of story fall away. You are not being watched. You are simply being, and your blink, quiet, natural, yours, is enough. There's something quiet about the space just before you speak, a pause that floats between thought and expression, where your body prepares, even before you know exactly what you're going to say. In that pause, your eyes often move, and very often, they blink, not by accident, not from dryness or light, but from timing, from tension, from need. The blink, in moments like these, becomes more than just a physical gesture. It becomes a kind of invisible punctuation, not at the end of a sentence, but before one begins. A subtle marker that says, "Give me a second." It's a pause that buys time, and the brain loves that time, because to speak is to choose. And when the stakes feel high, even in the smallest way, the mind doesn't always rush. It hesitates. It wants a moment to organize, to assess, to shield. And sometimes, when a question touches something we'd rather not share, or something we're about to bend, that hesitation becomes a blink, a flicker, a flutter, a tiny delay between stimulus and response. You've seen this happen, maybe in a conversation when someone has asked something unexpected. Their eyes close for just a breath, just long enough to say, "I'm working on it." And when they open again, the answer comes, maybe honest, maybe not. But the blink came first, and you've done it too. Not with intention, but with instinct. The blink offers a moment of cover, not in the sense of hiding, but in the sense of buffering, like a sigh, like a shuffle of mental papers before speaking. This kind of blink has been called many things: a processing pause, a decision marker, a hesitation cue. But whatever name you give it, the meaning remains. Blinking helps us manage timing. It's one of the only body signals that doesn't interrupt speech, doesn't demand attention, and doesn't require movement. It simply happens, quietly, efficiently, while your voice prepares. And when that voice is preparing to lie, the blink often shifts. Because lying, as we know now, adds complexity. And with that complexity comes the need for more time, more space, more mental maneuvering. The blink, once again, rises to assist. It might come a fraction of a second before the response, or 2 or 3 times in a row, rapid but gentle, It might feel like a stutter in your own awareness, a flicker you don't register until after the fact. But it's there, providing a breath, providing space, not to deceive, but to manage. Because your body, even in moments of subtle dishonesty, is trying to stay regulated, trying to maintain balance between what is felt, what is known, and what is said. And blinking becomes a kind of bridge. Even professional performers, actors, politicians, public speakers, unconsciously use blinking to guide their delivery, to time their phrases, to transition between emotional beats. Some even use a slow blink as a cue to reset their voice or posture. And in everyday conversation, we all do this, especially in conversations that involve risk, emotional risk, social risk, even intellectual risk, a question that pushes too far, a topic that brushes too close. We blink, sometimes once, sometimes more. A tiny flare in the rhythm of expression, and others notice. Not always consciously, but they notice. Because blinking, as subtle as it is, lives in the shared space between people. We may not think we're watching it, but we are. It informs how we read tone, how we sense comfort, how we assess intention. It's why someone who never blinks can make us uneasy, and someone who blinks too much can feel uncertain. The rhythm of blinking helps us feel the truth, even before we evaluate it. But the blink that buys time doesn't always mean someone is lying. Sometimes it just means they're thinking, searching, filtering, deciding how much to say, or how to say it kindly. That moment, that blink, becomes a gift, a space where truth and tact negotiate. You've likely had moments where you've needed that space, not to hide something terrible, but to protect a feeling, to rephrase a truth, to soften a blow. You blink, and the sentence you give is a little different than the one you first imagined, a little more careful, a little more human. And that's the beauty of it. The blink isn't just a reflex. It's part of your communication toolkit, a silent gesture that shapes how thoughts turn into words. That lets your mind and mouth align just long enough to make something meaningful. And sometimes merciful. Because honesty, even when desired, can be sharp. And the blink offers just enough distance to smooth its edges. This is why researchers believe blinking is closely tied to both memory retrieval and decision-making. When you ask someone to recall something personal or difficult, their blink rate often rises just before they answer. Their mind is searching, filtering, reaching into the archive, and the blink holds the door open. Just for a second, just long enough. It's not always easy to notice, especially in yourself. But if you watch a recorded conversation, or even a mirror, you might begin to see it, those tiny pauses, those quiet signals, those unseen negotiations happening behind the eyes. And knowing this doesn't make you manipulative. It makes you aware that your body has a rhythm of its own, aware that you are always communicating, even in stillness, even now, lying here, eyes closed or open. You are blinking, sometimes slowly, sometimes not at all, sometimes once every few seconds. When a thought arises, and in that flicker, that space between, you are letting your thoughts catch up, letting your breath settle, letting yourself be human. So, the next time someone asks you something hard, or strange, or unexpectedly close to the heart, and you feel yourself blink before you speak, notice it, appreciate it. That moment belongs to you. A pause, a buffer, a breath. And as we move forward, we'll look more closely at how your brain handles this load, the challenge of holding two realities, the tension between what's true and what's said, and how that challenge quietly spills into the rhythms of your eyes. But for now, you don't need to think, just blink, and rest in the quiet that follows. The blink fades, the breath settles, and somewhere beneath the surface of your stillness, your mind begins to lift the weight of this next idea, not all at once, but gently, like placing your hands under a stone and noticing just how heavy it is. Because to lie, even a little, is to carry something extra, something more than just a story. It is to hold two versions of reality at the same time, the truth you know, and the version you present. And that duality is heavy. Your brain feels it. This is what scientists refer to as cognitive load, the amount of mental effort being used in working memory. It's the bandwidth required to think, to filter, to plan, and to perform, all at once. Telling the truth tends to be lighter. It flows. It's already there, stored in memory, needing little construction. But telling a lie, that's a different process. It involves inhibition, the suppression of the real answer. It requires fabrication, the creation of a new answer. It demands consistency, keeping the new answer aligned with what's already been said. And it involves anticipation, predicting how the listener might react and adjusting accordingly. That's a lot of weight for one thought to carry. And your body doesn't ignore it. It responds in tone, in gesture, in heart rate, and, very often, in the blink. You blink more when your brain is working harder. Not always immediately, but in patterns. A delayed rise, or a post-response flutter, or a hesitation just before you speak. The blink becomes part of the system's attempt to balance the pressure, to maintain function under load, because the truth is, your nervous system is designed for efficiency. It likes low effort, low resistance, low stress. And lying, even when subtle, even when well-intended, is not efficient. In studies where participants were instructed to tell lies under time conditions, researchers observed consistent changes in blink behavior. Some people suppressed blinking during the lie itself, focusing so intensely on their story that their eyes barely moved. But almost all of them blinked significantly more in the seconds after, as if the body needed to recover from the strain. It's like a wave, effort, then release. One particularly interesting finding comes from studies using thermal imaging and EEG scans. These tools measure facial heat and brainwave activity, respectively, and they show that during deception, the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for complex decision-making, lights up more than usual. This region helps you juggle those two competing realities, but it's also a limited resource. The more you use it, the more signals begin to appear in the body. Your pupils may dilate, your voice may shift, and your blink may no longer follow its usual rhythm. The blink becomes erratic, or delayed, or clustered, not because you're caught, not because you're weak, but because the system is overloaded. And here's what's remarkable. This isn't something we're trained to notice. It's something we feel. Even without conscious recognition, we tend to sense when someone is under pressure, when something about their timing feels off, when their blink is too quick or too still, or simply doesn't match the tone of their words. We feel it because we, too, have been there. We know the sensation of carrying a cognitive load, the juggling act of trying to remember, to perform, to please, to protect. We know what it feels like to pause before an answer, to hold a story in our heads and wonder if it sounds real enough to say aloud. And in that pause, often comes the blink, sometimes slow, sometimes sharp, sometimes 3 or 4 in a row. A signal, not to others, but to yourself, that something complex is unfolding inside. The blink, in this way, becomes a self-soothing gesture, a way to regulate, to soften, to give the brain the space it needs to realign. It's not just deception that creates this load. Emotion does too. So does fear, so does creativity, so does empathy. But deception, Even gentle or necessary deception adds a unique pressure, the need to maintain two truths at once. And maintaining that balance, especially under observation, is tiring. It's why liars, when studied over long interviews, often show more signs of fatigue than truth tellers. Their blinking increases, their posture shifts, their speech slows, because the longer they maintain the fiction, the more effort it takes to keep it stable. The body wasn't made for long-term deception, at least not comfortably. That's not to say we can't do it. We can, and we do, but not without cost. And often, that cost begins in the subtleties, in the breath, the voice, the gaze, the blink. So, the next time you find yourself blinking a little faster after telling a white lie, don't shame yourself. Don't overanalyze. Just notice. Notice that your body is responding in real time, that it's caring for you in its own way, that it's managing pressure, smoothing strain, releasing tension, one blink at a time, because this is how you are built, not for perfection, but for presence, for awareness. You are a system that reflects what it carries, and sometimes it carries a lot. Even now, as you lie in stillness, your body may be releasing some of that load through the breath, through the heart, through the eyes. You don't need to hold both truths anymore. You don't need to perform. Just let the blink come. Let it wash through you like a tide. Let it bring you back to rest. And in the next step, we'll explore whether this blink, this small, loyal reflex, can be controlled, whether people can train themselves to hide what the eyes reveal, and what that says about consciousness and self-awareness. But for now, close your eyes gently, and if they open again, let them do so in their own time. You are safe here, somewhere in your mind, that soft, unseen space behind your thoughts. You may have wondered if blinking reveals so much. Can it be controlled? Can you teach your eyelids not to flutter when you're nervous? Can you rehearse a stare so steady that it betrays nothing at all? Can the body be trained to keep its secrets? It's a fair question, a quiet curiosity, especially now. After everything we've explored, after seeing how blinking reflects tension, emotion, and cognitive load, it's tempting to imagine that, with enough discipline, it could all be masked, hidden, neutralized. But here's where things get interesting. Because yes, to a certain extent, blinking can be influenced, but to control it completely, that's something else entirely. Let's begin with what's possible. Actors, for instance, are taught to control their blinks for emotional effect. A prolonged stare can convey intensity. A slow blink can suggest vulnerability. A well-timed blink can punctuate a line, like a period in a sentence. With enough practice, they learn to match their eye behavior to the rhythm of a scene, consciously, deliberately. Professional poker players do something similar. They work to reduce their blinking during gameplay, especially when bluffing, to avoid giving away cues. Their eyes become part of the mask, a calculated stillness. Even some law enforcement professionals, trained in deception detection, learn to observe and regulate their own nonverbal cues, not to deceive, but to remain neutral, to create space for the subject to reveal more than they say. But here's the catch. These forms of control take immense effort. They require self-awareness, practice, and often a setting where the stakes are clearly defined. And even then, the control doesn't last forever. Because blinking, like breathing, is regulated by both voluntary and involuntary systems. You can override it briefly. You can hold your eyes open. You can slow your blink rate for a moment or two. But eventually, the body reclaims its rhythm. It always does. Your brain, after all, is wired to maintain balance. And suppressing natural reflexes comes at a cost. In fact, Studies have shown that when people attempt to control their blinking under pressure, their stress markers increase, heart rate, cortisol levels, subtle muscle tension. The very act of trying to hide creates more signals to reveal. It becomes a paradox. The more you try to conceal, the more the effort itself becomes visible. And this reveals something deeper, something beautifully human. The body does not like to lie. It can, but it doesn't want to. Because your nervous system is built for regulation, not performance, for integration, not fragmentation. When you try to divide yourself, to say one thing while feeling another, the body notices. The eyes respond, not out of disobedience, but out of honesty. That doesn't mean everyone reveals everything. Far from it. Some people are better at masking than others. Trauma, training, temperament, all can shape how someone expresses or suppresses. Some individuals, especially those in high-risk professions, develop a kind of emotional armor that includes eye behavior. But even in those cases, the blink remains imperfect. It breaks through in the pauses. It returns in the quiet. It shows up when memory stirs, or when emotion sneaks past the practiced tone of voice. That's because blinking is not just a behavior, it's a system function, tied to awareness, attention, emotion, and timing. It's embedded in your circuitry, always responding, always adapting. To train it is really to train your awareness of it, to become more conscious of your own rhythms, your own habits, your own moments of stress. And in that awareness, yes, you can influence the blink temporarily, selectively, but it will always return to its baseline. It will always, eventually, tell the truth. And that's not a flaw, that's a feature, because what the blink reveals isn't weakness, it's reality. It's the beautiful, ever-shifting dance between what you feel and what you express. It's a reminder that you don't need to be perfect to be whole. This, too, has been studied. In one set of experiments, participants were asked to suppress their blinking during storytelling. At first, they succeeded. Their eyes remained wide, unblinking, intentional. But after only a few minutes, fatigue set in. Their blink rate surged. Their speech slowed. Their stories became less coherent. Because control, like lying, is a cognitive load. And the more you try to control what your eyes are saying, the more mental resources it takes away from the story itself. Your body knows this. It tries to help. It brings the blink back, not to betray you, but to regulate you, to let the system breathe, to bring coherence where strain has crept in. So, can you train a blink to behave? Yes, but only for a while, and never completely. And maybe that's a gift, because it means you are more than your intention. You are more than your performance. You are a whole, integrated being, one whose body is always whispering back to the mind. This is how I really feel, even when the mind doesn't want to hear it, even when the voice says something else, even now. So, lie here, if you can, without trying to change anything. Let the reflexes be what they are. Let the blink come and go. Let the eyes rest when they need to. Let the breath follow. No one is watching. Nothing is being judged. You don't have to get it right. And in our next quiet step, we'll look at what happens when the rest of the body joins in. When blinking becomes just one voice in a larger choir of unspoken signals. When fidgeting, throat clearing, and breath holding begin to echo the same story the eyes are trying to tell. But not yet. Right now, the moment belongs to you. The breath, the blink, the quiet truth underneath it all. Even as your eyes rest now, soft behind your lids, peaceful and unobserved, other parts of you are still speaking, quietly, naturally, without any need for attention, because blinking is only one voice in a larger conversation. Your body is always having, within itself, with your thoughts, and with the world around you. This is the hidden language of nonverbal cues, the delicate choreography of tiny motions and reflexes that slip beneath the surface of words. The foot that taps, the fingers that fidget, the breath that catches, the swallow that arrives just before a sentence. And often, these signals come before you're even aware of them. They speak first. The body, in its own subtle wisdom, reacts faster than the mind. It notices tension, conflict, unease, and begins responding before you have time to decide how you feel. The blink, of course, is one of these responses, but it rarely acts alone. Have you ever caught yourself straightening your shoulders before answering a difficult question? Or pressing your lips together before delivering bad news? Or shifting your weight when a topic grows uncomfortable? These aren't accidents. They're expressive defaults, your body's way of finding balance. And among these responses, some of the most consistent appear in moments of deception. Not because the body is trying to reveal a lie, but because it's trying to manage the strain of holding two truths. The blink might flutter, but so might the fingers, the voice, the posture. You might clear your throat, not because it's dry, but because the brain sends a signal to reset, to ground itself. You might exhale more forcefully, cross your arms, touch your face. These aren't tells in the theatrical sense. They're not proof. They're pressure valves, ways for the body to dissipate internal tension. And just like blinking, they often occur without permission. One of the most studied of these behaviors is fidgeting. When someone is telling the truth, their gestures tend to align with their words, flowing naturally, in rhythm. But when lying, gestures may fragment, timing falters. Movements become repetitive or disconnected from speech. Not because the liar is nervous, necessarily, but because their brain is multitasking, holding multiple versions of reality at once. And that juggling act causes small misalignments between intention and expression. The same happens with posture shifts. People tend to move more when they're managing emotional dissonance. They adjust their legs, their hands, their shoulders, again, not consciously, but reactively. It's the body trying to shake off static. Even eye contact plays its part, sometimes paired with blinking, sometimes not. A person who usually maintains comfortable gaze might glance away more often when they feel uneasy, or hold eye contact too intensely, trying to compensate. But what's most fascinating is how these signals, blinking included, don't just appear when we lie to others. They also emerge when we lie to ourselves. That's one of the quiet truths that science is only beginning to understand. That self-deception, saying, "I'm fine," when you're not. Convincing yourself that something doesn't hurt when it does can trigger the same subtle shifts in body language. Because the nervous system reacts to internal conflict just as much as external challenge. Your blink might change even when you're the only one in the room. That's how honest the body really is. And it's not just in high-stakes moments. These micro-behaviors show up in everyday conversations, in emails read aloud, in texts responded to too quickly, in a dinner table smile that feels just a little too still. They don't always mean dishonesty. Often, they mean emotion, uncertainty, the presence of something unspoken, and the body, unable to keep it all in, begins to speak first. Even in silence. And the people around you notice too, even if they don't realize it. Because human beings are wired for empathy detection. We evolved to sense discomfort in others, to pick up on small changes in rhythm, breath, expression. That's why someone can say, "I'm okay." And we still feel the need to ask, "Are you sure?" Our bodies are speaking to each other, constantly. And this, in many ways, is beautiful, because it means we're connected in ways we can't always define. It means that honesty doesn't always need words. That understanding can begin in a blink, in a sigh, in a soft shift of the shoulders. It also means that learning to read yourself, your own cues, your own signals, is a quiet kind of wisdom. You might start to notice when your blink changes, when your hand finds your collarbone without you realizing, when you laugh and immediately cross your arms. These aren't flaws, they're windows, gentle indicators that something inside needs attention, or care, or simply a moment to breathe. So no, the blink doesn't act alone. It moves in harmony with a whole symphony of motion, a ripple in a sea of signals. And the more you learn to listen to it, not as a tool of judgment, but as a gesture of compassion, the more clearly you begin to hear the truth underneath everything. Not the spoken truth, but the felt truth, the one your body carries even when your words can't. So as you lie here now, still and quiet, feel the presence of that symphony, the gentle tugs and pulls of breath, the soft weight of your arms, the occasional twitch of a finger or the shifting of your jaw. All of it is expression. Even in rest, you are alive with quiet conversation, between brain and body, between self and feeling, between what you say and what you truly know. And as we continue this story, following the threads of movement and meaning, we'll turn next to a particularly delicate expression, the subtle shifts of the face, micro-expressions, fleeting, invisible emotions that rise and vanish before the mind even has time to speak. But for now, let your body soften. You don't need to manage anything. You don't need to explain. You can simply be, and if your eyes blink, let them. If your hand stirs, let it. You are not hiding. You are simply honest. Stillness is never quite still. Even when your limbs rest, even when your breathing slows, your face, this delicate canvas of emotion, remains quietly alive. Muscles beneath the surface shift without announcement. A flicker at the brow, a tightening at the corners of the mouth, a soft contraction under the eye. It all happens too quickly to catch unless you're truly watching. And even then, it often escapes notice. These movements are called micro-expressions, tiny, involuntary facial expressions that occur when a person experiences a brief, often subconscious, emotional response. They last for just a fraction of a second, too fast for most people to fake or even notice they have made. And yet, they speak volumes, just like blinking. Micro-expressions are part of the body's quiet honesty. They reveal what words may conceal. They rise before thoughts are fully formed, before feelings are filtered. They belong to the deeper self, the part that feels first and reasons later. In many ways, the blink and the micro-expression are companions. They often appear together, layered atop each other like overlapping brush strokes. A quick blink might hide the brief tightening of the lips. A gaze downward may follow the lift of an eyebrow that flashes for less than a second. You might never see them, but your body often feels them, in others, and in yourself. Let's say someone asks you a question that touches a nerve. Maybe it's simple on the surface. Are you okay? Or, did you finish that task? But underneath, it strikes something, pressure, guilt, vulnerability. Before you answer, your face may flicker. A flash of surprise, annoyance, embarrassment, defensiveness, a tension that lasts just long enough to register in the nervous system. The blink follows. The breath adjusts. Then comes the response. And most of the time, that response is filtered, softened, controlled, but the face has already spoken. That's the nature of micro-expressions. They happen before you decide what to say, before you craft a reaction. They are pure feeling, caught in motion. Researchers like Paul Ekman have studied micro-expressions for decades, identifying universal expressions that occur across cultures. Happiness, sadness, anger, fear, surprise, disgust, and contempt. Each one tied to subtle muscle groups in the face, and each one capable of appearing even when someone is trying not to show anything at all, even when someone is lying, especially when someone is lying, because lying creates emotional dissonance. And even if the words sound perfect, and the blinking has been trained into stillness, the face often slips, just for a moment, a twitch of the cheek, a narrowing of the eyes, a slight curl of the lip, not enough to shout, but enough to signal, enough for the body to whisper, "This doesn't match." And we feel it, intuitively. Even if we can't explain why, something seems off. That strange sense of emotional static, a mismatch between what we see and what we hear. It's not always deception. Sometimes it's discomfort, or hesitation, or effort, but the body notices. And micro-expressions, though small, are powerful. They often reveal the true emotional tone behind what is being said. Someone might say, "Of course I'm happy for you," but a flicker of contempt may pass over their face before the smile. Or someone might insist, "It's fine," even as a flash of sadness tightens the eyes. It's not betrayal, it's honesty, unplanned, unpolished, human, and just like blinking, micro-expressions are nearly impossible to suppress completely. You can try. You can learn to soften your gaze, to train your smile, to hold a neutral expression, but even then, the effort itself becomes visible. The stillness becomes too still. The calm, too calm. Because emotion was never meant to be perfectly contained. It was meant to move, to ripple, to find expression, even for a moment. And when it doesn't, the body struggles. That's why people who regularly suppress emotion, whether by necessity or habit, often experience physical fatigue, tension, headaches, emotional fog, because to hold in that much expression takes energy. The muscles stay partially engaged. The nervous system remains alert. The face becomes a landscape of held-back motion. But when you allow it, just a little, it passes. Like weather, a flash, a blink, a breath. Even in solitude, your face expresses. You might be reading, and a line surprises you. Your eyebrows lift, even though no one is watching. Or you remember something painful, and your mouth draws inward, a grimace, gone in an instant. These are real expressions. They are not performances. They are reflections of your inner landscape. And when we allow ourselves to feel them, to let the body speak even briefly, something inside relaxes, the tension lessens, the system recalibrates. This is especially true when we tell the truth after holding back. When we stop pretending we're fine, when we admit we're tired, when we say the thing we've been trying not to say, the micro-expression softens, the blink evens out, the rhythm returns. Because honesty isn't just moral, it's physiological. It brings the nervous system back into alignment. It reduces the need for performance. It lets the face breathe. And in moments of trust, real trust, you'll often see fewer micro-expressions. Not because the person is hiding, but because there is no need to correct, no need to suppress, no need to adjust their face to fit their words. What's said and what's felt are the same. That's the power of coherence. That's the beauty of being seen without having to manage how you're seen. So, tonight, as you lie here, your own face at rest, know that every muscle, every flicker and soft shift is a story in motion. Even in sleep, your facial muscles relax and contract, sometimes in dreams, sometimes in memories. You may blink in sleep, smile slightly, furrow gently. The body remembers emotion. It processes, it releases, let it. There's nothing to hide here. No mask to wear, no performance to hold. You are safe, you are whole, and your expressions, however brief, are valid. As we drift further, we'll begin to explore the blink in contrast to truth itself, what it looks like when we're no longer hiding, when the blink, the breath, the body, and the voice are in rhythm, when what we feel and what we say finally align. But for now, you don't need to speak. You don't need to move. Just let your next blink rise when it wants to, and let the rest soften. Somewhere in the hush that follows expression, there is a return. After the face has flickered, after the words have been chosen, after the breath has steadied, there is a moment, a quiet settling, when the body finds its way back to truth. And in that moment, the blink becomes honest. It's no longer covering, no longer buffering, no longer adjusting for pressure. It just happens, gently, naturally, at its own pace. This is the honest blink, the blink that arises not from tension, not from performance, but from presence, a blink that doesn't hide or protect. It simply flows with you, unhurried, unafraid. You might not notice it when it happens, but you can feel it. You feel it in conversations where the energy is easy, in moments of trust, in silence between two people who don't need to fill the space with anything more. That's where the honest blink lives. It moves in rhythm with truth, not dramatic truth, not some grand revelation, just realness. The kind of quiet truth that feels like exhaling, the kind that doesn't need to be explained, the kind that says, "Here I am," and means it. When you are in that space, your body knows. Your blink rate settles, your gaze softens, your shoulders drop just a little. You aren't working to be understood. You aren't trying to be convincing. You're just being, and so is your blink. This is what makes the honest blink so special. It's not just about what it's doing. It's about what it isn't doing. It isn't compensating. It isn't calculating. It isn't speaking ahead of your voice, trying to manage what might come next. It's simply responding to the moment, no past to guard, no future to anticipate. In this state, blinking becomes like breathing, seamless, effortless, integrated, and in that simplicity, there is peace. We often forget how much energy it takes to perform, even subtly, to keep a smile just a little longer than it wants to stay, to speak kindly when you feel frayed, to maintain steady eye contact when your thoughts are tangled. The body does its best to help, but the cost accumulates. The blink, when honest, signals that the cost has been lowered, that the effort has eased. You see this often in children, when they are tired but content, or curious but unafraid. Their eyes move freely, their blinks are soft and unpredictable, their faces rest in openness. Without the layering adults so often learn to carry. Animals, too. A cat that blinks slowly at you is not showing indifference, it's showing trust. A soft blink is a way of saying, "I'm safe, you're safe, I don't need to watch you every second." We do this too, though we forget. In deep conversation with someone you love. In the company of a friend who knows your unspoken truths. When you're alone, thinking clearly, not rehearsing anything, not guarding against judgment. In those spaces, your blink becomes smooth again, gentle, whole. It's a small thing, but a meaningful one. Because when blinking is honest, your whole system is saying, "This is okay. This moment is safe. I don't need to explain myself to myself." It's not something you can force. You can't sit down and decide to blink honestly. But you can make room for it. You can slow your pace. You can choose not to rush an answer. You can let yourself pause. You can practice presence. And in that stillness, your body remembers how to blink freely again. It remembers how to feel without filtering, how to think without managing, how to express without calculating. It remembers that truth. especially the quiet kind, feels good in the body. That's a kind of healing. Because if the lying blink carries tension, if it flutters under the pressure of dual truths, then the honest blink releases it. It returns you to your natural tempo. It aligns your mind and body. It signals that the internal conflict has passed. You don't always know when this shift will happen, but you know when it does. You feel it in the ease of your breath, in the comfort of your thoughts, in the way your body no longer fidgets for space. You feel it in your eyes. There's a softness to the gaze that comes with honesty. Not just truth in words, but emotional honesty, openness, vulnerability, the courage to be seen. It might be the moment after you say something real, or the moment after someone says something that lands gently in your heart, or simply a moment alone, when no one is asking anything of you, and you remember who you are without performance. That's when the honest blink returns, like a sigh, like a tide going out. So often we think of the body as betraying us, as revealing things we'd rather hide. But here's another way to see it. Your body is always trying to help you find your way back to yourself, back to congruence, back to rest, back to the truth that doesn't need to be explained, and the blink, it leads the way. Not loudly, not obviously, just as it always has, quietly, rhythmically, truthfully. As you lie here, still and safe, notice your own rhythm now. Your face, your eyes, your breath. There is no need to correct anything. There is no audience, only you, only now. And if your blink feels different than it did an hour ago, softer, slower, less concerned, that's a good sign. It means you're home. And as we drift onward, we'll begin to notice how this honesty extends beyond ourselves, into the quiet space between people, into the moment when you realize that someone else's eyes are blinking in time with your own, that the rhythms of trust are shared. But for now, let your next blink come and go. Let it speak. Let it rest. You are not hiding. You are simply here. There is a quiet that lives beyond words, a silence not of absence, but of presence. And in that silence, the blink remains. Even when there's nothing to say, no audience, no pressure, no conversation to navigate or emotion to conceal, still, your eyelids rise and fall, gently, as if to remind you, you are still here. You are still whole. Blinking in silence is different. It is not timed to speech. It's not dancing around meaning or layered with subtext. It simply follows the rhythm of being alive. When you're alone and still, no questions, no plans, no performance, the blink doesn't vanish. It slows, perhaps. It softens, but it never disappears, because the body continues to care for itself, even in the absence of outward expression. In fact, it might be during silence that blinking is most honest of all, no longer responding to dialogue, no longer shaped by interaction, just responding to light, to rest, to thought, to the slow wave of attention drifting inward. You might notice this in moments of deep focus, sitting at a window, watching rain fall, lying beneath the ceiling fan's gentle spin, reading a sentence and pausing, not to interpret, but to feel. The blink arrives there, unhurried, without calculation, a movement more of presence than of need, in silence. Blinking is not background, it is rhythm. It's how the body marks time when words are no longer the measure. A quiet metronome, a flicker of continuity, a signal to the brain that the system is still functioning, still grounded. Monks in meditation often enter states where blinking all but ceases, not because they are suppressing it, but because their gaze becomes so soft, so unfocused, that even the need to blink fades. But eventually, it returns, because the body never truly forgets to care for itself, not even in stillness. And what a beautiful thing that is, To know that even when your mind drifts, even when your mouth is closed, even when you are not performing or choosing or controlling, your eyes continue to move with you, to serve you, to anchor you. There's something sacred about that, something deeply human, because blinking in silence is not about survival anymore. It's about rhythm. It's about being. In these moments, you may even begin to notice the way blinking connects with thought itself. Scientists have observed that during periods of reflection, even without stimuli, the brain's default mode network becomes active. This is the region associated with inward focus, dreaming, remembering, planning. And as that system activates, the blink continues to operate alongside it, like a guide walking beside you through your mental garden. Each blink becomes a small lantern, lighting the path between thoughts. You blink when remembering. You blink when letting go of a memory. You blink when imagining the future or contemplating the past. And none of these require sound. None of them require speech. The eyes simply follow you inward, and in doing so, they mark a kind of interior truth. Think of all the times you've sat in silence and blinked through emotion. Perhaps tears were close, perhaps not. But something moved in you, a shift, a reckoning. The blink arrived, not to erase the feeling, but to hold it, to witness it. Because blinking, in its own quiet way, is a form of presence. It doesn't speak, it doesn't interrupt, but it says, I'm still here. And that matters. It matters in grief, in love, in awe, in surrender. It matters when the only thing you can do is sit beside someone in their silence and offer nothing but your gaze and your blink. Soft, unhurried, real. That is a form of connection, too. It's why, even in complete quiet, we still feel seen, because presence is more than noise. It's the body attuning to another, matching breath, matching pace, matching blink. The blink becomes a bridge between what you feel and what you share, between yourself and the stillness. This is something deeply grounding about blinking in nature, away from screens, away from artificial lights and demands. You might notice how your eyes find their own pace again, not pulled by rapid input, not strained by focus, just blinking when needed, not too much, not too little. That's your natural rhythm, and it's there, waiting for you beneath the layers of your daily life. You don't have to chase it, you only have to stop, to soften, to allow silence, to return to that gentle reflex, the one that never left. Even in rest, the blink is with you. Even in dreams, your eyes move, not always in blinks, but in tiny shifts. In REM sleep, your eyes dart behind your lids, following imagined sights. But outside those vivid dreams, your eyes may still flutter, still adjust, still blink, because your system is alive, even now, even here. And maybe that's the most comforting thought of all, that your body keeps holding you, even when your mind wanders. So tonight, as you lie in your own quiet, know that your blink does not need an audience. It does not need intention. It does not need meaning. It simply needs space. And that space is here. Let your eyelids fall when they wish. Let your gaze be soft or gone entirely. Let the silence carry you, not as absence, but as presence. You don't need to say anything. You don't need to do anything. Just be and blink when it feels right. In the next gentle chapter of this story, we'll explore how blinking changes again at the end of the day, when the body slows, when the mind lets go, when everything softens into sleep. But you don't have to go there yet. Stay here, with the quiet, with your blink, with the stillness you didn't know you needed. There's a moment at the edge of sleep when your eyes no longer belong to the day. They grow heavier, not from exhaustion exactly, but from surrender. The muscles soften, the gaze fades, And somewhere in that fading, your final blinks arrive, not with fanfare or force, but like small, closing parentheses on the quiet sentence of your day. You don't always remember them, but they're there, those last, unhurried blinks before your eyelids choose to stay closed. They are unlike the others, not reactive, not curious, not conversational. They don't mark attention or thought. They don't pace your speech or shield your emotion. They are pure transition, ushers guiding you gently from the known into the soft, unknown dark. This is the night blink, a blink that holds no resistance, a blink that says, it's okay now. You can stop holding it all. And your body listens. It listens to the slowness of the room, to the stillness of your bed, to the way your thoughts stretch and blur like clouds at dusk. The systems that carried you all day begin to release their hold. Your breath settles, your temperature shifts, your posture folds inward, and the blink follows. Slower, softer, intermittent. Soon, it becomes indistinguishable from closed eyes. One blink, then two, then stillness. But before that stillness, there's something sacred, that gentle rhythm at the end of consciousness, that final dance between light and dark, focus and letting go. It is not dramatic, it is not loud, but it is full of meaning, even if your mind has already begun to wander into dream. Because these final blinks are your permission slip. They are your body's way of saying, you've done enough, you've seen enough, you've held enough, and you have. Today, your eyes have carried you through landscapes and faces, screens and skies. They've tracked motion, taken in light, caught glances, held tears, blinked through laughter and uncertainty, maybe even through lies, maybe even through truths. And now, they rest. The eyelid, so often unnoticed, has done its job thousands of times, quietly, faithfully, and here, at the end, it offers its final gesture for the day. A closing of the curtain, a hush to the noise, a signal that the story can pause for now. You may find yourself blinking slower as you listen. That's not coincidence. It's biology. It's rhythm. It's your nervous system responding to calm, recalibrating in the presence of stillness. Some nights, the last blink comes easily. Other times, the eyes resist. They stay open just a little longer, drawn by the glow of thought or memory or screen. But even then, the blink is patient. It doesn't force. It waits. And when the time is right, it returns. The final blink of the day is different from all the others because it doesn't expect anything afterward. It does not reopen to verify. It does not check. It simply closes and stays. There is such comfort in that. To know that your body has its own way of saying goodnight. No words needed, no grand declarations. Just the quiet, steady rhythm that slows, then ceases, like a boat drifting into still water. You may wonder if your eyes blink in sleep. The answer is, not really. Once you enter non-REM sleep, your eyes tend to be still, quiet behind closed lids. Occasionally, during REM sleep, they'll move rapidly, following the scenery of dreams. But they don't blink. Not the way you do when awake. That's because blinking belongs to waking life. It's part of how we process, how we engage, how we regulate. And so, when you no longer need to do, when you shift from being a participant in the world to simply being, you stop blinking. And that stopping is a signal all its own. It tells your brain, we're safe, we're finished. You can begin to drift. And so you do. The quiet deepens. The muscles around your eyes release completely. The tiny tendons that held your gaze in place no longer grip. Your entire face smooths into something peaceful. And if there are dreams, they rise not through blinking, but through light and color and memory, through imagery unbound by eyes or lids. But just before that begins, just before the dream, you blink. One last time. You may not notice it, but your body does. That blink is the bridge from alert to calm, from knowing to floating, from today into whatever comes next. And that's a beautiful thought to carry with you, that the same tiny motion you've done all day, without fanfare, without applause, becomes, at the very end, a form of goodbye. Not a sad one, just soft, just enough. You don't need to force it. It will come. In fact, it may already have. If your eyelids are growing heavier now, let them. If your blinks are becoming slower, longer, lazier, let them. If they've already stopped, even better. There is no expectation here, only rhythm, only rest. And as we prepare to close this story, you are free to let go of listening, to stop tracking the words, to stop attending, to let your inner world take over. Your blink has done its work. So has your breath. So has your body. So have you. In the next, final section, we'll ease gently into closure, into the softest kind of goodbye. Not an end, but a return to stillness, to presence, to the peace that Blinken always knew how to find. But you don't need to reach it awake. If you're ready, let your eyes stay closed. Let this be the blink that says nothing more is needed. You are here. You are enough. You can rest. You don't notice the moment it stops. You never do. The blink, once steady and familiar, slows to a whisper and then vanishes altogether. Not abruptly, not sharply, but gently, like mist dissolving in morning light. You've crossed the threshold now, from motion into stillness, from waking into rest. And in this quiet space, your eyes are closed not as a choice, but as a surrender, a natural release, a return. There is no need to watch anymore, nothing more to see, no more rhythm to keep, just silence and breath and peace. You might imagine your eyelids here, soft, relaxed, unfurrowed. They rest like petals at dusk, folding inward, protecting nothing, holding only warmth. The muscles around them no longer twitch. The tension has melted. The skin is smooth. The work is done. And your blink, which once carried so much stress, thought, emotion, response, has let go of its task. It no longer needs to regulate, to protect, to manage anything at all. It becomes something simpler. Stillness, presence, the kind that asks nothing of you. Tonight, you've wandered a quiet trail, tracing the story of a blink from instinct to emotion, from tension to trust. You've seen it dance in conversation, hide in deception, reveal in silence, slow at day's end, and now dissolve. Because that's what rest is. It's not a switch. It's a soft unspooling, a letting go that feels so natural. It often goes unnoticed, like a tide pulling back from the shore, like light dimming without fanfare, like the final blink that never reopens. You're in that space now, and it's beautiful here. There are no demands in this stillness, no eyes watching you, no voice asking for anything, no need to respond, to remember, to perform. The day is done. The story is told, and your body, your eyes, your breath, they know it. You may be drifting already, floating gently in the warmth of sleep, or perhaps you're still here, listening, letting the words ripple through the quiet parts of your mind. Either way, you are exactly where you need to be, because the blink has done its work. It has carried you through thought and feeling, held your emotions like soft little flags, waving in micro moments of vulnerability and strength. It has blinked through tears, through laughter, through hesitation. It has shielded you from glare, from screens, from things you weren't quite ready to see. And now, It rests. It's easy to forget how much the blink holds, how much it reflects, how much it reveals even when you try not to. But it does, and it always has. Even before you could speak, your blinking spoke for you, in cries, in curiosity, in wonder. And long after this night fades, it will return again. When you wake, it will be the first movement, the first signal of life and attention, a flutter, a stretch, the quiet resumption of rhythm. It will not ask for thanks. It will not remind you what it's done. It will simply begin again. That's the gift of the blink and of the body, a willingness to begin again, to regulate, to reset, to return, always. And now, as you lie here, still, warm, perhaps already half asleep, know this. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are not too much or too little or too late. You are simply here. And that is enough. This is not a performance. This is rest. This is not analysis. This is being. You do not have to hold your thoughts still. You do not have to hold your breath. You do not have to fix your posture or your feelings. You are not blinking anymore, and that is okay. It means the body trusts the moment. It means the system is safe. It means you have arrived at the quiet center of yourself. So, if your mind wants to wander now, let it. If your dreams want to start early, let them. If you don't remember the end of this story tomorrow, that's perfectly fine. It means the story did its job. The quiet scientist is not here to teach you everything, just to walk beside you, to offer a gentle rhythm, a small question, and a space where wonder is allowed to be slow, where sleep is welcome, where blinking can stop, where silence feels like care. Thank you for coming this far. Thank you for listening with your whole body. Thank you for letting this story enter your breath. Now rest. Let the stillness deepen. Let the story fall away. You're safe. You're still. You're whole. Good night. Sleep well. Sweet dreams.